Hello.
Hello. Hi, Chaim.
How are you doing, Gilad?
Very good. Happy to be here as usual.
Happy to be here too. And welcome to another lesson, to lesson number 3 of What Does It Mean to Be Jewish Today. And today's lesson is going to be about the evolution of the correction method, how it all, from Abraham, how it developed, how he started the correction method, and how it developed through the ages until today. We're going to run through it. And
as usual, we'll be here to take your questions, and feel free to ask any question you like about the lesson, or even not about the lesson. We'll try to get those as well. Obviously, first about the lesson.
We'll try.
Yeah.
Okay, so last time we talked about the evolution of desires. If you remember, we talked about 4 basic levels. Okay, the still, the vegetative, the animate, and the speaking, which develop everywhere. First of all, you see them in nature, in reality around us. Okay, so starting from the Big Bang, you see the minerals developing, galaxies and planets, and everything develops. Eventually, the vegetative level emerges. Why does it emerge? Because another level of the will to receive emerges, and then the plants start to develop, and then the plants develop further and animals begin to appear. The difference between animals and plants is that animals can motion is the main difference between animals and plants. Animals can move about to search for food, for mates for reproduction, etc. And then humans appear. Now, humans, the difference between humans and animals is that humans can actually sense the past, the present, and the future. And they have this thing that animals don't have, which we call envy, which causes them to look into the past, into the present, and into the future, and constantly compare themselves. So what happens is that they constantly develop, as opposed to animals. And
I think that there's another big difference. Lions, I don't want to walk around next to a hungry lion, right? Because they'll
probably not.
They'll probably jump at me.
Yeah.
But next to a lion that just ate, I have no worries. If you go to the zoo and the lions have eaten, you can walk by them and...
Don't try this at home.
Don't try it at home, but if you've been to the zoo, which you probably have, and you walk next to the lion cage, and they've eaten already, you feel no threat to yourself, because the lion's already eaten. He's not going to try eat more. He's not hungry. He doesn't need more. However, walk next to a hungry human being, no matter what, if he's eaten or
don't try this at home.
Don't try it at home. This is even more dangerous. I think there's in humans you see something that they're never fulfilled.
Right.
So with animals, at some level, you know that they've got what they need. That's it. Even if it's to prey or get game. With human beings, it seems like there's never enough. You have something, you want more. You have more, you want even more.
Precisely. And the way the will to receive develops in this way is through envy. That's why we mentioned last week that there's this quote that if you have, or maybe we're going to mention it this week too, if you have, you never die with half of what you want. You always want twice as much as you have. And that's a very human trait. We all know that. The whole consumer society is built on that. So in humans, eventually, another level of desire develops, and it's the spiritual desire. We called it the point in the heart, Kabbalists called it. And that desire doesn't just want to have everything, but it begins to ask why everything exists. As soon as you have that question, you know you have a point in the heart. Then people start looking. And we talked about how Abraham started having this question, and he broke all the statues of his father, and he moved out of Babylon into Canaan, which later became the land of Israel. And a whole nation was formed that has the answer to why everything happens. And we talked about how today, this is what people need to know. why everything happens, so that they know how to make everything work. Okay? So now we're going to talk about the evolution of the correction method. Why? Because Abraham's method was great for his time. But as Gilad just mentioned, the will to receive constantly develops. It's not static. As soon as you have what you want more and more and more. And what was good for you yesterday isn't good for you now. And the more egoistic people become, the more they need to adapt the correction method. Because what is a correction method? What is the method that Abraham found? It's a method for correcting the egoism, right? His fellow Babylonians were growing alienated and were moving away from each other, and he realized that you have to unite above the differences, above the growing distance, instead of actually moving away, because that's the purpose of creation, to attain the power of unity that exists above everything and that maintains everything. And if you do that, then you implement the purpose of creation, and then you've achieved your life's purpose. If you don't, then you can run away from one another for as long as you want, but eventually, which is what's happening today, you're going to have to face reality, which is that we're all connected. And then you're going to have to find a way to connect. So Abraham was trying to do that. He found a good way. It worked for his time. Afterwards, it stopped working. Okay? So what happens is you have the egoism, which in Kabbalah is called the evil inclination. And by the way, I'd like to mention that, first of all, you're more than welcome to send your questions to Gilad is monitoring them all the time. So if you have any questions, go ahead and just shoot. We're willing to stop at any point and just answer your questions. Where was I?
About the
evil inclination, right?
Evil inclination.
Right. So, yeah, what did I want to say about it?
Then maybe it's not that evil.
Good point. It depends on how you use it. Okay, so that's the whole trick. Because the evil inclination is mandatory. It's implanted, it's inherent in each and every one of us. The only question is how you use it. Without the evil inclination, oh yes, I remember what I wanted to say. Everything we're saying here is based on the assumption that you've read the book, right? Because you have downloaded the book. That's how you got into this course, okay? So we are assuming you basically know what we're talking about, and you also had your homework, which I hope was sent to you, which was to read chapter number 3. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is based on chapter number 3. And next week we're going to talk about chapter number 4. Okay, so we're going to talk about that again. We're going to, but I'm telling you up front, okay? So you cannot develop without the will to receive, and without the will to receive's growth. Because what happens is that in animals it doesn't grow. That's why once an animal has eaten, it doesn't want any more. It doesn't have a concept of future, of, well, wolves keep for themselves stock for the winter and stuff like that. Other animals do that too. But in general, they don't plan for the future. They don't build houses. They don't have a savings account. Humans do. Why? Because they have a concept of future. Their own future and future generations. Posterity. So we build on that, and our will to receive is growing. We are becoming more and more egoistic. So we have to adapt everything, including the correction method, to be able to adapt how we rein in this egoism, so that it becomes constructive instead of destructive, as we are saying today. Yes, Gilad?
Question for me.
Okay.
We're talking about two terms here: evil inclination and the will to receive.
Right. What's the difference between
Are they
them?
the same? Is the will to receive an evil inclination? Is it evil? Are we evil? Maybe you can clarify that a little bit.
Okay, good point. The will to receive is the basic trait that exists in all of creation. It's a desire to, well, in the still, it manifests in the form of wanting to just preserve your current form, like.
Which is Newton's law of, his first law says that every object wants to stay complete rest.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's why you have to use energy if you want to break any material, because it aspires to maintain its form.
That's why things aren't moving around here on the table, basically.
Right.
Well, they are moving around on a
very
quantum
slowly,
level,
yes.
like the electrons, but that's why this isn't running around here, because it wants to stay complete rest.
Right.
So that's how it manifests in the still level.
In the vegetative level, it starts to move, but you have, like, all plants are basically the same, plants of a certain type, okay? They all move according to the sun. They open the petals, they close the petals, they all do it together. So they have this, you got one flower, all flowers are the same. On the
will to receive is like the software?
The will to receive, I'd say it's like the engine. The thing is, what happens on the human level? Because, as I said, there's envy. What we have is never enough. And whenever we have what we want, we start looking for the next thing to have. As I said, the whole consumer society is built on that.
So if I get a new car, I'm really happy for a few days.
For a few days, until you see that your neighbor just got a new car, which is better than yours.
Better than my car, and I'm not so happy anymore.
Right. So there are two elements about the will to receive here in humans. First of all, envy, and next, the need to be superior. Okay? It's not just that I'm envy of what someone else. I don't just want to be on a par with everyone else. I want to be at least slightly higher. Okay? There are tons of researchers showing that if you make $100,000 a year, but you live in a social environment where people make $200,000 a year, you're going to feel miserable. But if you make $50,000 a year and you live in an environment where people make $25,000 a year, then you feel great.
That's called, in psychology, hedonic adaptation, which basically means that you adapt to anything, any pleasure that you get, you immediately adapt to it, and then you're already pursuing the next kind of pleasure. And it's a good example because I teach, and whenever I ask my students how their grade was, it's never about the actual grade. They always tell me how their grade was in comparison to their class. So it's like, I got 60 out of 100, but everyone else got 40, so I'm good. or I got 90, but everyone got 100, so it wasn't so good. It's always measured according to everyone else. That's how they measured it, and I'm always amazed by it. That's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, it was already the way to measure yourself. I remember speaking to American students. I had American friends, and like we would talk about being in school and everything, and they would never mention grades. They would always say, I'm in the top 5% of my class, I'm in the top 2%. They were never below the top 5%, by the way, never, ever. At least not in what they mentioned. So yeah, that's how that's the culture. So we can see that it's never enough to be good. It's never enough to be great. You always have to be greater, better than the others around you.
So is that the will to receive, or is that the evil inclination, or are they the same thing?
That's when the will to receive becomes egoism. Because eventually, you don't just want to be better. If you've done your best and it still isn't good enough, then you start wanting others to be worse. That's when the will to receive becomes evil.
That's the misuse of the will to receive.
Right. And that's inherent in human nature. Okay, it's not our fault that we're like that, but we have to learn how to harness it, how to use it correctly, and then we turn it around. That's why we have a correction method. What is the correction about? It's about taking this inclination, this desire, and using it productively. Okay? Our whole technology and society and culture are built on having this will to receive, this evil inclination. It's great that we have all these things. That's the reason why we can talk to you now, because of everything we developed. But again, at some point when you use it detrimentally, it hurts you to a point where society becomes unsustainable. And we are at that point right now. So we need a correction method for the will to receive. It doesn't mean we have to stop developing whatsoever. It just means that we have to start using what we're developing for the mutual benefit, for society's benefit, instead of just for our own. So we have a whole culture to change here. And that's where education comes in, and that's where correction comes in. That's what Abraham was trying to do. He started educating his people. And at some point, only those who wanted to be educated according to his idea of mutual benefit moved along with him, and the rest stayed in their own societies. But at some point, the evil inclination grew to a point where that method wasn't good enough. Okay, so they went, Abraham's clan or people or whatever you want to call it, went down to Egypt, meaning what? The will to receive was growing in them. Again, I'm relying on you reading chapter 4. Egypt symbolizes, okay, let's put it this way, another level of the egoism, and they eventually escaped it because they realized they could not maintain unity while being in Egypt, obviously, if you're too egoistic. So they escaped. And then I just want to mention another point that we keep mentioning, but it's very, very important. Abraham wanted to teach the whole world, not just himself, okay? Pavel, if you can just show slide number 2. Thanks. Maimonides, the 11th, I think, or 12th century philosopher and Kabbalist and sage, he wrote about Abraham that he began to call out to the whole world, meaning to everyone around him. So he wasn't making any discrimination, any distinctions. He just wanted everyone to know about this correction method. So again, the correction method is for everyone. It's not just for Jews, but Abraham's descendants, because they already had some kind of contact and some level of correction, they have this commitment, obligation to keep spreading, to keep doing Abraham's work. So he began to call out to the whole world. And then, if you can just show slide number 3, coming out of Egypt through Moses' leadership, we have a new level, a new stage in the correction method that is required. Why? Because on the third level, on that level, Abraham's method is not good enough. His method was good for people who were not too egoistic. Moses needs to correct an entire people. 3 million people, that's what the scriptures say, come out with him out of Egypt. It's a huge amount of people, and he cannot go and teach them all. He has to find some way that everyone will be corrected, and that way has to maintain itself, going from one person to another. So he develops another stage, another level in the correction method, and it's called the Torah. The Torah, simply translated, means law. Law. What law? Law of unity. That's why it's written that they received the Torah only once they said that they accepted, they assumed upon themselves the law of being as one man with one heart. And it's written that they were told, if you do not accept this law, this will be your burial place. Meaning, either you all become united and attain the Creator, attain the power of unity, the creative force of reality, or you all lose it. You lose that connection, and you separate like the rest of the people. So it's death in the spiritual sense. So they had to choose. And it's a lot like the moment of choice that we're facing today in humanity, where we either have to unite because we have a culture of alienation and separation, so we either have to unite and rise above it, or we're all going to lose it. So I just want to read you something, okay? This one is from the Babylonian Talmud, which was written about 2,000 years ago. The first quote, okay. Upon their acceptance of the condition to be as one man with one heart. If you're reading from the book, it's on page 51 at the bottom. To be as one man with one heart. Israel received the Torah, the instruction, the code of law that would help them tame the ego. In other words, use it for mutual benefit. With it, with the Torah, they became a society whose every member, man, woman, and child, attained the Creator and lived by the law of mutual guarantee. We're going to talk about that in a second. In equivalence of form, in similarity with the one God, the one force that Abraham discovered. The Babylonian Talmud writes, they checked from Dan to Beersheba, and no ignoramus, meaning a person who was still under the influence of egoism, was found from Gvat to Antipris. In other words, throughout, from the north to the south, from the east to the west, everyone was corrected. No boy or girl, man or woman was found who was not thoroughly versed in the laws of purity and impurity. Now here we have to mention that purity means quality of bestowal, attainment of the Creator, and impurity means egoism, selfishness. So the people of Israel entirely was corrected, was living under the law of bestowal. How? In a sec. Through mutual guarantee. Okay, well, remind me to talk about mutual guarantee in a second.
That's actually what I was going to ask.
Oh, okay.
Because what does it mean corrected? It means that they're no longer under that law of a will to receive. Suddenly they've switched their nature to a different kind of nature. How can a person transform from that egoistic nature we were talking about, of measuring himself in comparison to others and being above everyone else and so on, and transform to mutual guarantee? Is that changing a person's nature completely?
Actually, it is. It's not changing. It's correcting a person's nature, because the will to receive remains within us all the time. The question is only how we use it. That's why we talked about mutual benefits. The difference is this: do I want to use my skills just for me, to be superior to everyone else? Or do we all want to use our skills, our nature, our every talent for mutual benefit, through which the whole of society rises to another level, in corporeality as well, but But not just that, you create a new level of connection. And through it, you discover another level of reality where everything is already connected. Because you become equal to it, we talked about the radio, the receiver, because you become equal to it, you begin to perceive that there's another undercurrent, underlayer to reality, where everything is connected. We see it on the quantum level, of course, in physics, but it exists even before that. The reason why it manifests on the quantum level is because it exists at the foundation of reality.
Mm-hmm. We actually see it also on the social level today. We see that everything is interconnected. We
Absolutely.
see that one event in one side of the world immediately influences everything else on the other side of the world. I just read an interesting article. Pair of jeans. How many countries does it take to manufacture a pair of jeans, a single pair of jeans? 9.
9?
9 countries.
I'll bet you a lot more.
And more?
A lot more, for sure. For sure.
No,
You
it's
never
9.
know where the cotton came from.
Cotton comes from Malaysia, threads from Singapore. I don't know. I don't remember exactly
Yes,
what comes
and the
from where.
machinery to make the cotton, and the seeds.
And the machinery. Okay, that's already something. That's already.
You will, if you really check it thoroughly, you will find that every single product on Earth is probably made from every single point on Earth.
That's true. That reminds me of another research that says there's no single person in the world that knows how to create a pencil from zero. It's a simple pencil. Because when you look into a pencil, then just like you're saying, then the wood is cut down. But what's it cut down with? It's cut down with machinery. And the machinery is made somewhere else. And that's made somewhere else. And everything, even something so simple like a pencil, there's no single person in the world that can create it from zero. So that's exactly what you're saying. And I just want to get back to the other point that we were talking about. So from what you're describing, it sounds our will to receive remains a will to receive, correct?
Yes,
it
absolutely.
remains as it is.
Yes.
It's just how we use it.
Right.
So it would be like having a knife and either using it to stab someone or using that very same knife as a surgeon to heal someone, to operate on someone. So we're using the same tool here, that same will to receive, but we're using it in a different form, in a destructive manner or in a constructive manner. And Israel has to use it in a constructive manner, in a form of mutual guarantee, like you were saying, and so on.
Precisely. Just yesterday, saw a story in CNN. They have this guns project now, where they start monitoring gunshot deaths in the U.S. They said that in the U.S. alone, 32,000 people die each year just by being gunned down.
Oh.
Right. So, but rifles aren't necessarily bad, right? They could help us hunt, or they could help us protect each other. But why do we need to protect each other in the first place? Okay. So again, it's human nature, but the question is how we use it. If we're using it against ourselves, we're going to end up with a lot worse, actually, than 32,000 deaths.
You want some statistics on that? What we're going to end up with? What we've already ended up with? We'll do that later.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's try it out.
Okay, let's do... if we can have a look at the screen here, if not, I'll just read out the statistics from here. Great. So, ecology. Approximately 40% of the world's agriculture is seriously degraded. 75% of fish stock are fully exploited. Global temperatures rising. 9 out of the 10 warmest years ever monitored have been since the year 2000. So, global warming isn't just an idea or a scam or whatever. This is facts. About 80% of the world's population lives in areas with threat to water security. So most of the world doesn't have clean water. We can look on the societal level as well, not just the economy. But this is an incredible, shocking fact, actually. 5 children die every day as a result of abuse, every day. Over the past century, homicide cases have risen between 30 to 400%. Violence has tripled since the 60s. Violence at schools increased 70-80% over the last 10 years. Around half teens today have been victims of cyberbullying. We also have economy. It's very clear what's happening in the economy. Unemployment is soaring all around the world. European debt is constantly increasing. Portugal, Italy, Greece, many other European countries on the verge of bankruptcy. central banks around the world, they're
Okay.
accepting.
Yeah. There's all kinds of data.
There's a long list there. This is just
Yeah, with economy, you can play with the numbers however you want. The fact of the matter is, our lives aren't getting any easier, except for just the top 0.5%, I would say, who's making tons of money at the expense of the rest of us. Now, so why is this mutual guarantee so important? Because when you employ it, you guarantee that the society works for the benefit of its members, and B, because by doing that you acquire a consciousness that is beyond the current consciousness we have now. Look at the cells in our bodies. Okay, every human being has approximately 10 trillion cells in an average human body. Okay, if they didn't work in sync for the mutual benefit of the organism of our bodies, we would all die. Human existence wouldn't be possible if our cells didn't work in mutual guarantee. But as a result, they don't just guarantee our lives, they guarantee their own lives as well, their own health. They provide for each other, the cells, but with the mindset of providing for the well-being of the whole body. Okay? So they do receive what they need, but they do it for the rest of the body, so that they can maintain the health of the whole body. If we work like that, then we would have everything we need, and we would have a consciousness that's all encompassing, complete, comprehensive perception of reality on every level. That's the idea behind mutual guarantee. Now, another thing is important to know about it. Without it, today, we cannot exist. Gilad just read all this gloomy data.
That was nothing. I was just getting started.
Yeah, I know. And that's who we are today. And, there's only so much you can go on with that kind of attitude of humanity. So, mutual guarantee today is essential. It's paramount for our existence. But no one knows how to implement it, except for the people who did it before. And this is the true meaning of being a light for the nations. In a time of darkness, there is one nation that's meant to bring the light, which is the method for attaining mutual guarantee and this all-encompassing perception. And that's the Jewish nation. Now, granted, the majority of Jews don't know how to obtain mutual guarantee. They work just like everyone else for themselves. And they excel at it. But deep down, there's this hidden memory that they can awaken. And that's what we're trying to help everyone do right here. And that's the memory of obtaining mutual guarantee, the method that Moses developed and that was developing all through the years. More questions at this point?
Yeah, we have a question from Sue.
Okay.
From DC. She says, there are many people who do good things for the ecology, society, and for each other. What's the difference from what you're proposing and what's already being done? So what you're talking about, mutual guarantee and so on, it sounds like Sue's saying, like a lot of people are trying to practice that.
Exactly. Several differences, I would say. First of all, Doing good is good. The question is, did you have to overcome, if you're a good person, okay, by nature, and you, I don't know, you like animals, okay? So you take care of animals, or you take care of the poor or of the sick, and it's in your nature. You enjoy it. The question is, did you have to overcome your own nature in order to become a giving person in whatever it is that you're giving? If not, then it means that your own will to receive is leading you toward that. This is not bad in and of itself. The question is, are you becoming not egoistic in that sense? What if there were no sick people and you love taking care of the sick? It makes you feel good. The question is why you do it, okay? Because it makes you feel good, because maybe you're afraid that one day you might be sick and you might need some help. If everyone took care of everyone else, if we lived in mutual guarantee, there wouldn't be sick people. We wouldn't cut more wood than we need. Everything would be balanced. There's plenty of food for everyone. There isn't any need for hunger. I once read an alarming statistics that the amount of food we throw away, if we could distribute it to the amount of people who are currently suffering from hunger, they wouldn't just have enough, they'd grow fat. So there's more than we need. We are producing too much already at the expense of our own prosperity. So all we need to do is learn how to balance ourselves. And the question is this what you're aiming for when you do good? If you had to overcome yourself and that's why you do it, fine. But if you didn't, and you're doing it just because it makes you feel good, then you haven't corrected anything. So it's fine that you're doing it. But the question is, are you bringing the world, the whole world, toward mutual guarantee, which is what the world needs today. So we're not saying doing good is not good. We're just saying the world needs mutual guarantee, general correction now. That's where we want to take it. If we do that, everything will be okay. More?
Yes. Jim from Washington says, who's evaluating and judging where we are on this path of correction? How can we know if we're even progressing in the system of correction?
That's a good question, Jim. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. What we do know I want to read something at this point. Let me see if I have it. I'm going to jump ahead. I might read it again later, but I want to jump ahead. Okay. Let's go to slide number 7, okay? The Ramchal, who wrote this, was a great Kabbalist, a great sage. He was actually had many visions about the corrected state of the world and how it should be. So we want to read something for that. The objective to correct the world has not changed throughout the centuries. Noah was created to correct the world in the state that it was at the time. And his contemporaries will also receive correction from him. Also, in his commentary on the Torah, the Ramchal writes, Moses wished to complete the correction of the world at that time. This is why he took the mixed multitude. In other words, he took everyone, those who were in mutual guarantee and those who weren't, as he thought that thus would be the correction of the world that will be done at the end of correction. However, he did not succeed because of the corruptions that occurred along the way. And more. Slide number 8. By the start of the 20th century, all inhibitions were off, meaning people had to, the Kabbalists had to disclose the method. Rav Kook expressed in this mindset very clearly in one of his letters. I have agreed to disclose all the secrets of the world since it is time to do unto the Creator, meaning to help everyone discover this power, as it is required at this time. Okay, I'm going to stop here. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's a good question whether we are making progress or not. But whether or not we know if we are making progress, we have to do our best. That's the point I'm trying to make. Because we see what's happening with the world today. And we see that we are going in the opposite direction to correction, to unity. So, and we see that whatever we're trying to do, because everyone understands that unity is great, and that if everyone were united, things would be wonderful. But no one can do it. No government, no organization has yet found a way to unite people. Why? Because it's inherent in human nature to be disunited. So you have to put in addition, to put some kind of correction over human nature in order to enable people to unite. And that's what we're trying to disseminate here. So whether or not we're going in the right direction, we know we're doing the right thing, which is bringing people a little closer to the method of correction. So if you, Jim, and everyone else help us out, we might be able to do it a little faster. And then we'd all be moving in the right direction for sure. Okay? So we don't know how fast we're going, but we know one thing for sure. We got to go faster. And we need everyone's help. So following Moses, they moved into the land of Canaan, and which later became the land of Israel. And they built there a society where everyone knew the Creator, just as we read before. Okay? Every man, woman, and child knew the Creator, meaning they were united. They were in mutual guarantee. Now, within the people of Israel, the will to receive the egoism was growing too. So they had to constantly adapt and update or upgrade the method of correction. And they were successful up to a point where they broke down and they were exiled again into Babylon, where they were able to unite once again, and they moved back to the land of Israel. But this time, many of them already were not able to correct themselves, and they became not Israel. Okay, these are the lost tribes, as we call them today. Why are they not Israel today? Because when you drop from the level of unity into the level of disunity and egoism, you're not considered internally Israel anymore, as we've explained before. And so they dispersed and assimilated with the rest of the nations wherever they were living. The rest of the Israelites who could still maintain unity moved back to the land of Israel. They lived there and fought mainly themselves, their egos, until At some point, approximately 2,000 years ago, they could no longer maintain their unity as well. They were exiled from each other, and as a result, exiled from the land of Israel. Okay? In slide number 4, page 53 in the book, it's written, Pavel, if you can just show slide number, thank you. In his book, Netzach Israel, The Might of Israel, Rabbi Israel Segal describes Israel's fall from grace. In the Second Temple, there was a special virtue, that Israel were not divided in two. There was only unity among them while the temple existed, okay? Therefore, the First Temple was ruined by transgressions that are tumah, impurity, and the Lord does not dwell among them in the midst of their tumah. So those who left the state of unity became not Israel anymore. But the Second Temple was ruined by unfounded hatred. This is very important. Only hatred among them caused the ruin of the Second Temple, which revokes their unity, he writes, which was their virtue in the Second Temple. So the only thing that kept them together in the Second Temple was unity. Once they lost that, they were exiled from Israel. What happens next? Even after the exile, there are people who still maintain the quality of unity and mutual guarantee, and therefore maintain the attainment of the Creator. And two paramount scriptures are written at that time. The Mishnah, which becomes the foundation of Jewish learning and the thing around which all Jews unite from that point on for almost 2,000 years. And another very important book is written, the Book of Zohar. It's written and immediately concealed. The Book of Zohar, which is the basis of the Kabbalah that we study today and that Dr. Lightman employs with his students, is really the implementation of the correction method for our time. That's why the book was concealed, because it wasn't suitable for the people at that time. Had they read it then, they would not understand. They wouldn't have been able to understand it properly and use it for the purpose of correction. So it was hidden. Now it is being revealed because we can already study it in the right manner, meaning in order to correct ourselves, in order to change ourselves and achieve mutual guarantee again. It's not like what's written in the Mishnah or the Talmud is incorrect, not at all. But people who studied it at that time were able to maintain unity by studying it. They wouldn't have been able to maintain unity by studying the Zohar. So the Zohar was concealed. It began to appear in the 12th, 13th century, first through, what was his name? Rabbi Moshe de Leon. Was concealed again. The Ari talked about it some more in the 16th century, but only since the 20th century has it become completely revealed. Once Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, Baal Sulam, wrote his Sulam, ladder, commentary on the entire book of Zohar. So what happens is that Kabbalists continue to develop the correction method, but they do it quietly, for themselves, for the closest students. And they teach it and upgrade it and update it according to their time. But since the Ari onward, something changes. Okay? Look at slide number 5. Permission to study. In his book, Light of the Sun, Kabbalist Rabbi Avraham Azulai wrote, the prohibition from above to refrain from open study, not just from study, but from open study of the wisdom of truth, meaning Kabbalah, was for a limited period until the end of 1490, which is approximately when they are relived. Thereafter, it is considered the last generation, meaning the final stage of correction, in which the prohibition was lifted and permission has been granted to engage in the book of Zohar and the study of Kabbalah. And since the year 1540, it has been a great commandment, a good deed, for the masses to study, old and young, again, just like before. And since the Messiah is bound to come, meaning correction, okay? Let's not get into what the Messiah means. As a result, and for no other reason, it is inappropriate to be negligent. In other words, from that time onward, you have to study Kabbalah. So we are approximately 5 centuries behind schedule. Okay? So it's no wonder the world is in the state it is in. Okay? What do you got?
What's Kabbalah?
You want to answer that?
It's actually, to tell you the truth, it's not a question here. It's just a question I'm asking, because from that quote you were saying, then that's the correction, basically, that study.
Yeah, it's a correction method.
That's the correction method. Okay, so I think it actually goes in line with what we were talking about before, because the first part of the lesson we were actually saying that our program, our engine, as you said, is called the will to receive. And the only thing we need to change isn't the actual will to receive, it's how we use it. And that makes sense that the wisdom of Kabbalah is the solution, because Kabbalah in Hebrew means to receive.
Right.
So the wisdom of Kabbalah, it sounds a bit weird if you think about it. The wisdom of receiving.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what we need, because if we are that will to receive, as you were saying, and that's all we are, and that won't change, right?
Right.
We can't change that. We can only change how we use it. So it seems like learning how to use that correctly is the exact solution.
Exactly. A few weeks ago, Dr. Lightman had an interview with Larry King, and he asked him, so what is Kabbalah? So he explained exactly what you're saying, that, it comes from the word lekabil, to receive. But we all know how to receive, at least we think it, right? It's very easy, it's very natural for us to receive. But if we do, then why are we never satisfied?
So that fulfillment immediately cancels the pleasure.
Right.
We get something, we receive it, seemingly,
Right.
but we can never really receive it. It's like we're always on the verge of reception, but it never fulfills, like it never goes inside.
Exactly. So that's the trick. That's what Kabbalah teaches us. How to, receive endlessly, because that's the purpose, for us to enjoy and receive, but without destroying ourselves and the world, without being ever deficient, although we are always receiving. So to be happy and to receive, and then to receive even more, and then be even happier, and never get to the state where we feel dissatisfied.
I'm assuming we'll get into that in further lessons a bit as well, because it's still a bit unclear.
I'm sure it is.
How can I receive endlessly and it's not on your account or someone else's account? In our current paradigms, it just doesn't make sense.
Okay, we are going to get into it a little bit. If you really want to learn a lot more about it, there is the Education Center. You're welcome to join. It's free, and you'll learn a whole lot about it. There you really go into details. But basically, Kabbalah comes from the word lekabil, to receive, and it's a method that teaches you how to receive endless, boundless joy and pleasure while not being constantly hungry, starving. And why is it important? Because the way to receive that endless pleasure is through mutual guarantee.
Okay, so now it's starting to connect these points together.
Exactly. You cannot do it alone. Okay? But if we connect, this is what you become creator-like.
I'm sure a lot of people now have this kind of inner feeling maybe of rejection on the one hand.
Well, they've read it in the book. I'm building on that.
Yeah, no, I know. It's natural that when you hear that the solution to any problems you have is actually dependent on others, it's a bit, it's a bit repulsive. On the other hand, if we look at ourselves and we see what really makes us happy, there was this research, Caroline Miller was saying about it. They asked a group of students what they aspire for, and they said, a bigger house, a promotion, win the lottery, buy a boat, a whole list of material fulfillments. And then they asked them, what was the best thing that happened to you in the last year? And they all said things related to social relations. I got married, I fell in love, I met a friend. So it's interesting to see that people think they'll be fulfilled by material needs, because that's what we're brainwashed constantly by society.
Right.
But truly on that fundamental level, it's like we're internally programmed to actually be fulfilled by what you're saying, by this mutual guarantee.
Because why do we need material things? In order to be able to show them off to others.
That's true.
What's the point of having a boat if you can't talk about it?
That's true.
Yeah, so everything is about connections. We just have to fix them. Okay? Hence, mutual guarantee. Here's another one on the permission to study and why it's so important. The 18th century sage, the Vilna Gaon, wrote explicitly, redemption of the world depends on the study of Kabbalah. And also, in the early 19th century, Kabbalists began to proclaim that even children should study Kabbalah. Again, as before, okay? Explicitly revoking the prohibition to study before the age of 40, because maybe not everyone knows it, but there was a prohibition to study before you are 40 and you are proficient in all the other Jewish studies like Mishnah, Talmud, Gemara, etc. So now they're saying, no, everyone must study, okay? The Rabbi of Kamarna wrote, if my people heeded me in this generation, he lived in the 19th century, when heresy prevails, that was in the 19th century, they would delve in the study of the book of Zohar and the Tikkunim, which is another part of the Zohar, corrections of the Zohar, contemplating them with 9-year-old infants. So now we're at this point where everyone must achieve it together. And the correction method has been prepared. It doesn't mean we all have to study Kabbalah. We don't. We do, however, have to realize that correction of the world happens only through mutual guarantee, mutual responsibility, through not just caring for each other, but through realizing that if not everyone, every single person in society is cared for just as I care for myself, then eventually it's going to backlash on us. And we're not going to be able to maintain society in a sustainable way. And if we want to have a good life, we have to find a way to all work together for mutual benefit, and then we're going to have a great life. And the way to do it, the way to be able to work together, is by implementing mutual guarantee. Now, I'm jumping ahead here. I'm going to talk about it some more, but I think it's appropriate at this point. There are two ways we can get there. One way is for those with points in the heart. People with points in the heart, just like Abraham, they need a specific correction method, which is today called Kabbalah. Okay, it's an evolution of the same method that Abraham developed thousands of years ago. They need Kabbalah, but not everyone has a point in the heart. Not everyone keeps asking about the meaning of life. What's it all for? What's it about? It's fine that I have what I need, but why do I have it in the first place? Why? Okay, so for the why people, you need the wisdom of Kabbalah. For the how people, how do I get a better life? How do I make sure my kids have what they need? How do we fix this world? They need a different method because they will not relate to Kabbalah. So for them there's something else called integral education, which is the method that teaches them about unity, the importance of unity, and helps them unite, actually unite, without having to learn anything about Kabbalah. And through that unity, they begin to discover that internal power that keeps everything together. Okay, so we're going to talk more about integral education later, but you need to know already that there's a correction method for everyone. It's applicable for every single person in the world. It's just that everyone have to know about it and to some extent implement it so that we can all have a good life. I want to read something. Okay, let's read two more slides. Okay, let's go to slide number 8, please. In page 58, Dr. Lightman quotes the Rav Kook. The Rav Kook was the first chief rabbi of Israel, even before the state of Israel was established. He was also a great Kabbalist, but he wasn't writing for Kabbalists. He was writing for everyone. So he wrote this. I have agreed to disclose all the secrets of the world, since it is time. Okay, I'm going to read the whole quote. By the start of the 20th century, all inhibitions were off. Everyone could study. And Kabbalists openly called for the spreading of the wisdom and teaching it to all the nations. All the nations. Not to the Jews alone, to all the nations. Again, a light for the nations. Rav Kook expressed this mindset very clearly in one of his letters. I have agreed to disclose all the secrets of the world, since it is time to do unto the Creator, meaning to discover life's force, as it is required at this time. Now, he died in 1935, so just imagine how urgent he felt about it and when it was, okay, like about 100 years ago. Greater and better than I have suffered nationwide slander for such matters, as their pure spirits pressured them for the sake of correcting the generation to speak new words and to reveal the concealed, to which the intellect of the masses was not accustomed. Not just the Jewish masses, but everyone all over the world. Go to slide number 9. During World War I, Rav Kook felt compelled to outline the connection he saw between the world's troubles and the rekindling of the spiritual force of Israel through unity. In his book Orot, Lights, he wrote, "The construction of the world, which is currently crumpled by the dreadful storms of a blood-filled sword," World War I, yes, requires the construction of the Israeli nation. He connects Israel, the unity of Israel with World War I. The construction of the nation and the revealing of its spirit of unity are one and the same. And it is one with the construction of the world, which is crumbling in anticipation for a force full of unity and sublimity. And all that is in the soul of the assembly of Israel. So again, and he wrote very specific, very clearly, and Baal Sulam also wrote about it, Rav Yehuda Ashlag, that if Israel were united, wars would simply not happen, because they are reflections of our disunity. And once Israel unite, they project this light of unity to the world, and when you are united, you just don't fight one another, period. It's as simple as that. Okay, now let's dedicate the time we have for some more questions if we have any.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So, hold on, I lost the question I was going to ask. Sorry. Question from... So we'll start with the last question, then I'll find the other one. So Sue from DC is asking, can you explain what mutual guarantee looks like?
Everything you want for yourself, want it for others. Another example. If you have a sore in your index finger, your whole body is troubled by it. Your whole mind, you constantly think about this sore. And your whole body works to heal it. Once the sore is healed, the finger works for the benefit of the entire body. So they are guarantors to one another, constantly thinking about the other's well-being. That's how our body works. Everything in nature works this way. That's why nature can maintain balance and can exist, because everything eventually takes care of everything else, and by doing that, everything is able to exist. More. Was that clear?
Yep, maybe I'll just add to that.
Okay.
Like, imagine a family. Like it's supposed to be, not maybe
Right.
the modern family that's falling apart, but a family that it's supposed to be. You have kids that are different, completely different in nature, different desires. They could even be desires that are contradicting one another. But it doesn't matter, because in a family, you know how to solve these things because you have natural care and natural love for each other. So the fact that one child wants something and the other child wants another thing, and they could be even partly overlapping, it doesn't matter. You can find a solution to that in a harmonious manner, because you have this love, this care for one another. So that's just what Chaim was saying.
Right.
What you want for yourself, you want it for others as well. That's a result of just developing this care for other people. Because that's, if you look around, that's basically what we're lacking. We're lacking care for other people. Mutual guarantee.
Mutual guarantee.
So I found the question I was going to ask before.
Yes, please.
So a question, it's actually from before, but it's relevant. A question from Bonnie, from Virginia. She says, in a world where no one seems to like anyone else, how can this correction be decided as best for everyone? So she's giving Ferguson as an example, a good example of division.
Yes.
And how can this country attain the correction, and from whom? So I think there's actually three questions here. If no one seems to like anyone else, then how can this correction be decided as best for everyone? That's one question.
It can't. Absolutely. We all have to decide that we want correction. First of all, if people don't feel the need to be corrected, there's nothing you can do. What are you going to do? Force a person to be corrected? That's why we're trying to disseminate, to circulate the idea that only if we all take care of each other do we have a chance of surviving. Ferguson is a great example. It's terrible what's happening there, but it's only a reflection of what's happening all over the country. That's why there were protests all over the country, because it just exemplifies the situation everywhere. That people hate each other, and you cannot maintain a society, as we are seeing through Ferguson, through tons of other examples, that you cannot maintain a society if you only think about yourself. It doesn't work.
Second part of the question is, how can this country, let's put it together. How can this country, I assume United States, attain this correction, and from whom?
From us. All of us. All of us who want correction, who circulate the idea of what correction means. From everyone understanding that correction is required, necessary, for our survival, basically. Once everyone realizes it, you don't need a single teacher. Maybe someone to direct you in the right direction. But it happens from within. If you didn't correct yourself, what are you going to do? You can't keep, following someone and just completely annulling yourself to someone else and then saying whatever he says goes, because if you do that, then you're not yourself anymore. You have to go through an internal process of realizing that what this person says is true for you, and then you want to do it. Okay? So we're also getting into the role of a teacher, which is basically only to show you the way, and then you have to walk the way. Okay? In short, no one can do it for us. We have to decide that we want it for ourselves. If we don't, then we don't. Then we can wait and see what happens. But if we all decide that we want correction, and that correction means unity, then we all come and unite.
Another question, maybe this will be the last one, from Barry from California. So he writes, I've changed my life where I seek nothing in return, and if it's harder, then it's worth doing first. In addition, he says, I also study Torah and many Kabbalah texts, currently Sefer Yetzirah. Is this the right path?
Well, it's definitely on the path. There are changes. Just take it into account. As soon as you get on the path, there are changes, because the will to receive keeps growing. So you'll probably want to learn other books as well, and you'll see that at some point it's very hard to overcome the evil inclination, and here and there you succumb to it. But it's good. Keep working. You're definitely on the right direction. As long as you want correction, and as long as you realize that correction comes through unity with other people, you're doing great. Okay? So for the next lesson, before we go into the announcements, for the next lesson, please read chapter number 4, because that's what we're going to talk about in the next lesson. Okay?
So the next lesson, lesson number 4, is going to be about the evolution of the method. So how Abraham and Moses developed the correction method. Correct? That's the next lesson, right?
I don't remember what's in the next... I'm going to have to do my homework as well.
Yeah, I'm taking it from the schedule. So.
Okay.
So that's going to be the next lesson. It's going to be...
I think this... I don't know. If I remember correctly, I think it has to do with the role of the Jewish people, with focusing on the role of the Jewish people. Okay. So you're looking at the schedule, at the course schedule.
Lesson, yeah.
Okay.
That's lesson number 5.
Right. So there's a mistake there. And what's written in the schedule as lesson number 5 is actually the next lesson, lesson number 4.
Okay. So lesson number 4 is on Tuesday, December 9th, 8 p.m., which is exactly a week minus an hour and 15 minutes from now. And it's going to be broadcasted live, and you'll get a link in your email. And as Chaim said, the topic is the role of the Jewish people to lead the world towards unity and mutual guarantee. So I assume we're going to talk more practically about the method of mutual guarantee we spoke about today, about the method of correction, and how to lead the world towards that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That was the short answer.
That was a short answer.
Yeah. The long answer next week.
The long answer next week, and I don't quite commit to talking about it. I want to explain more about the Jewish people and the role of the Jewish people before we get into the practical aspect of it.
Okay, great. And please like our Facebook page. It's just bundle of reads, one word. You'll find our page. Please find it and press like. And you'll get an email with a recording of the lesson as usual. And very happy to be here. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for being here with us. And thank you, Gilad.
Thank you, Chaim.
And we'll see you next week.